shots in the Gulf, threatening an already fragile ceasefire. Today, the U.S. military says it blew up 6 Iranian small boats in the Strait of Hormuz after Iran launched.
Wow, they blew up 6 jet skis, dude. Profound military achievement. Profound military accomplishment by the world's most powerful naval force. Wow, they blew up 6 go-fast boats.
The exchange of fire happening just hours after President Trump announced that the U.S. will begin helping guide stranded ships out of the strait. Meantime, the UAE is accusing Iran of renewed missile and drone attacks, the first since early April, including a drone strike on an Emirati oil port, causing a large fire and injuring 3 people there, according to officials.
Yeah, Boris, our U.S. Central Command Chief Admiral Bradley Cooper, he held a call with reporters earlier today, and he kind of outlined how the U.S. military is going about trying to guide these commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz, essentially via a huge U.S. military presence that involves guided missile destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft.
Yeah, it's incredible. He didn't even mention the ongoing strikes on the UAE law. Iran has taken some shots at unrelated nations with respect to the ship movement, Project Freedom, including a South Korean cargo ship. Perhaps it's time for South Korea to come and join the mission. We've shot down 7 small boats, or as they like to call them, fast boats. It's all they have left. Other than the South Korean ship, there has been, at this moment, no damage going through the strait. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, will have a news conference tomorrow morning. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. CENTCOM's commander wants to keep it a secret whether he knows if Iran has hit his own ships. Yeah, Commander Admiral Bradley Cooper says more commercial ships are en route to travel across the strait after 2 U.S. flags successfully traveled out of the strait. When I asked how many ships had been hit by Iran, he declined to give a number. Don't tell the enemy you know what they've been able to achieve. Seems great. Seems like a resounding success, chat. Seems like a lot of victories are taking place. Sources tell me the idea of Dubai is stable, please God. CENTCOM Chief Admiral Brad Cooper says UAE has exceptional capabilities and is well positioned to defend itself. UAE has been a great teammate to the U.S. Iran's military capabilities dramatically degraded, but that doesn't mean it's all gone. We need air support. You can do it. Oh my God. Trump is Putler. Trump literally is Putler. So this image, for those of you who don't know, if you're not like super autistic and tapped into, the situation monitoring for many years now, this image is from Syria specifically. It's and not just Ukraine, but also from the Syrian conflict as well. It's a Putin monkey meme. Whenever Vladimir Putin does something unbelievably stupid, where he just writes off his allies or something of that sort, or just does something inexplicable, they'll put this meme up of Vladimir Putin as playing chess as a monkey. Now they're using it for Donald Trump, because this is something not dissimilar to what Vladimir Putin would have done in Syria, right? Like the Bashar al-Assad government being like, hey, we need help right now, and then Putler says, you can do it. Here's some emotional support for you. He need banana. Yeah, that kind of thing. And now, given the Russification that has taken place in the American Central Command, they're now saying, Trump is also behaving in a way not dissimilar to Adolf Putler. Yeah, this is the initial meme. Yeah. Playing Russia and having lots of units and aircraft ready near Georgia for the 2008 war. I actually forgot about them after beating Chechnya. Yeah, Monkey Putin is like a classic meme. It's even funnier because Putin is allies with the new Syrian government. That is the most expected outcome of all time. It harkens back to that joke. That the whole joke is that, yes, Putler has no friends whatsoever, only immediate goals. He doesn't give a shit. That's why I always laugh whenever people are like, Vladimir Putin is engaging in an anti-imperialist war against the Western forces. It's like, that's not true. Never really been true. Lindsey Graham says Trump needs to help champion ally UAE. Borzo Daragai says the UAE, the fact that, or Sultan Al Ali, the fact that the Arab League is silent while the IRGC targets the UAE and threatens shipping is unacceptable. Why haven't we heard clear condemnations on these attacks? The pattern is obvious, and the ambition to expand influence across the Gulf is no secret. Silence at this point isn't neutrality, it's complicity. I wonder why the GCC is not saying a goddamn thing about the UAE being pummeled again. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the United Arab Emirates has literally decided to become, Muslim Israel. They left the GCC, and on top of that, they said, yeah, we're backing America and Israel all the way. The UAE allowed itself to be turned into an Israeli base at a time when not just the Arab world, but much of the entire planet has turned against Israel as a genocidal rogue state. Now UAE advocates are frustrated that no one is coming to its defense. Of course, no one's coming to his defense. It's really funny that America is not even coming to the UAE's defense, by the way. What's happened since Trump announced his plan to move ships out of the Hormuz, says Sina Tusi, senior fellow at CI Policy. UAE appears central to it, and indeed to contingency plans to restart the war. Iran has responded with reported attacks on UAE and expanded its control zone over all UAE ports. Tehran isn't letting up. Or not, sorry, the UAE didn't leave the GCC. The UAE left OPEC. I apologize. Which, is the center of power for the GCC. The cartel that is OPEC Plus, is the only reason why the GCC has power. President Trump said Washington will launch a maritime effort starting Monday morning, which has already started, to escort foreign vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz, citing requests from countries with ships stranded amid regional tensions. Trump described the plan, Project Freedom, as a humanitarian mission and said any interference from Iran will be met forcefully. He also said, I'm fully aware that my representatives are having very positive discussions with the country of Iran and that these discussions could lead somewhere very positive for all. Iran had also released some demands that are basically the same as the previous demands, but parsing it up in a short-term and long-term negotiations process. They did that yesterday. But what's funny about all of this is that all the oil futures pumping from Operation Freedom has already been wiped out by the missile and drone attacks on the UAE law. Yeah. The interesting predicament here is that it seems as though the Trump administration is going to continue conducting military operations rather than engaging Iran diplomatically. So, money molestation is still taking place. And of course, this kind of, according to Tritta's analysis at the very least, this kind of actually leans into Iran's goals, right? If Iran's goals were to restart the war, if Iran believes that it can hold out and continue punishing the global energy markets, continue punishing America this way militarily, then, as I said, it was either going to be Israel or America that restarts the military campaign. And here we are. America is going back up the escalation ladder instead of de-escalating.
I spoke with Iranian officials on Friday here, and they said they were very concerned that any easing of blockades around the Strait of Hormuz, they were very concerned that the United States would move in with the Navy to try to take control there. So what appears to be happening by projecting the effort to guide these commercial vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz, it has sort of upped, if you will, that tension, that suspicion on Iran's part that plays into their lack of trust about what the United States' real intentions here are. I have to say, despite that, we've seen these spikes in tensions before, and after a few days, things can potentially calm down. But Iran, again, has escalated beyond the tensions with the U.S.
Is there a world where we actually look at this stuff sincerely? Iran has escalated tensions. Buddy, there is currently a tolling process on the Strait of Hormuz and a negotiations process. None of this would have happened if America didn't decide to bomb Iran alongside Israel in an act of perfidy during a previous negotiations process. This is ridiculous. Iran has escalated? What do you mean? They brought Iran to the negotiations table and then said, fuck off. What is supposed to happen here? What are they supposed to do? Just not maintain their leverage? Of course they're going to maintain their leverage. This doesn't make any sense. But he's talking about today's escalation. No. Am I missing something? Yes. The reason why Iran is doing that when it wasn't doing it yesterday is because America has decided to force their assets through the Strait of Hormuz. That's the reason. Instead of negotiating with Iran, America has chosen military escalation once again. So obviously, Iran is going to retaliate. I don't know why behave as though our enemies, like our foreign adversaries, are incapable of making rational decisions or incapable of advancing their own interests. Or if they do advance their own interests, we treat it as though it's like totally ridiculous. We make it seem as though there's not two parties. We make it seem as though there's not two parties to this negotiations process, that they're just doing this for no reason out of nowhere. FARS, a military-informed source. The fire in the UAE was the result of the U.S. Army's adventurism. Following the explosion of widespread fire at the oil facilities of the Fujairah port and the attribution of it to the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, a military-informed official said the Islamic Republic had no pre-planned program to attack the mentioned oil facilities, and what happened was the result of U.S. Army's adventurism to create a passage for the illegal transit of ships through the forbidden routes of the Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. Army must be held accountable for it. U.S. statesmen must end the ugly behavior of using force and diplomacy and cease military adventurism in this sensitive oil region that affects the economy of all countries worldwide. You made us do it? I mean, yeah, that is what they're saying, because it's true. If there was a tit-for-tat war going on and then they set up a ceasefire and then America violated the principles of the ceasefire, then yeah, of course they're going to retaliate. What are we talking about? Because if they don't retaliate, then they have nothing. If they don't retaliate, they have no leverage. Why would they not maintain their leverage? I think we have to remember Iran was attacked first. We got to go back to like 60 plus days ago when Iran was at the negotiations table saying, we will lean into your maximalist demands. We will cave to your demands. We will concede to them as long as you give us sanctions relief. Of course, they have to reestablish that deterrence. Yeah, Ross Douthat is going to think these boys are going on an epic adventure. This is classic. Yeah. Adventurism in this circumstance means like erratic and decentralized modes of violence. Like it's just irrational, erratic violence. Okay. That's what adventurism is. It doesn't mean it's not a positive thing. It's a negative thing. Okay. Why is Iran attacking the UAE and not Israel? I don't know. Maybe because currently, as it stands, the United Arab Emirates, which can be seen as an extension of America and Israel, is participating in breaking through the blockade alongside the United States of America. Perhaps that's the reason why the UAE is being attacked. Also, Israel did send Iron Dome batteries, apparently. An Israeli air defense system deployed to the UAE was used to intercept an Iranian missile today, CNN reports. It was recently reported that Israel deployed at least one Iron Dome battery. Bro, if I'm Ukraine, I'm pissed, by the way. Famously, if you recall, in the early days of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Zelensky came out and was like, Mr. President, we would like to get the Iron Dome. And Israel, because of its, neutral allegiance to Russia, said, F off. They literally refused to give Ukraine an Iron Dome or any Iron Dome batteries whatsoever. They said, oh, we can't let them fall in the hands of our enemies, Russia. So in the eyes of Israel now, the United Arab Emirates is worthy of an Iron Dome defense system as opposed to Ukraine. If I am Ukrainian, if I am Zelensky, I look at this and I go, what the f*** are you guys doing? Well, Ukraine kind of well without, though. That is crazy. You think it would not have been good to rush ship a bunch of Iron Dome batteries in especially the beginning? Are you f***ing crazy? To population centers especially, you would have avoided civilian casualties. It's crazy that Israel was like, now Ukraine, f*** you. UAE, sure, you can have some Iron Dome defense batteries. You can have some. They are spending my missiles. It's not ours to give, it's Israel's. First of all, it absolutely is ours. What are you talking about? It's a collaborative project. The idea that Israel gets to make these decisions on their own is so funny. Okay, dude. Sure. Yeah, this was also funny too. The Volodymyr Zelensky, in any normal country, purchasing stolen goods is an act that entails legal liability. This applies in particular to the grain stolen by Russia. Another vessel carrying such grain has arrived at a port in Israel and is preparing to unload. This is not and cannot be legitimate. Joel Petlin goes, question for Grok. How many other countries in the world are getting shipments of stolen Ukrainian grain? And how many of them has Zelensky called out for it? Implying that the Jewish president of Ukraine is somehow anti-Semitic for singling out Israel, taking advantage of stolen, Russian theft of Ukrainian grain. What a fucking unbelievable situation. Zelensky's Jewish, by the way. 800 Patriot missiles were used for air defense in just 3 days in the Middle East. Ukraine received 604 years of full-scale war. Russia, Iran, and North Korea form a new axis of evil. Ukraine was the first to confront this axis. We continue to fight, but we need support. The free world must stop managing this threat and start defeating it. If there's one country that is more worthy of these defenses, I would say it's Ukraine. Like, Ukraine was illegally invaded by Russia, okay? Illegally invaded and occupied by Russia. Under the standards of international law, not that it matters, obviously. We all know that it's not worth anything. Like, there is a legitimate reason to aid in the defense of Ukraine. We bombed Iran. There was no reason for us to bomb Iran at all. So what doesn't make any sense is for Ukraine to, on the one hand, get mad about how many Patriot missiles were used to defend the Gulf nations after we decided to bomb Iran, while simultaneously be like, no, but we got to keep up the fight. It doesn't make any sense. Jonathan Karl, in a conversation with Jonathan Karl, ABC News chief Washington correspondent, President Trump said, or President Trump stopped short of saying Iran has violated the ceasefire. Regarding the Iranian drone and missile attacks on UAE today, they were shot down for the most part, Trump told me. One got through, not huge damage. Regarding the Iranian attack on a South Korean ship, we're going to look into it. Shots were fired at the South Korean ship, and I think South Korea should take some action. This was a South Korean ship riding by itself. It was not an escorted ship.
We will use the best efforts to get ships and crews safely out of the strait, Mr. Trump said on social media last night. They are victims of circumstance. This is a humanitarian gesture.
The U.S., we are just firing if fired upon. We are not the provocateurs here, but if the Iranians want to escalate here, we are willing to escalate.
The Americans say 2 ships successfully crossed the strait today, helped by U.S. Navy destroyers.
Bro, asking one of our vassals to do their own defense is so funny. I'm serious. It's unbelievably weak for America to be like, yeah, I know we fucked everything up for you guys, but like, you should probably send whatever like naval asses you have. Is so funny. What the fuck are we doing? It is so bitch made. This goes back to what I was saying about Donald Trump being a great nation builder for China. It goes back to what I was saying about Donald Trump doing unbelievable damage to the confidence that people had in American security. Murtaza Hussein from Dropsite says, South Korea should take some action. South Korea was not consulted about the war or involved in it, nor does it have the expeditionary capabilities or network of military bases in the Persian Gulf necessary to secure shipping there. What are they supposed to do? The only thing South Korea could do is sever ties with the United States of America and commit to a bilateral relationship with Iran in order for them to be able to transit their ships successfully through the Strait of Hormuz, which ironically enough would frustrate the United States of America, which currently has a secondary blockade, rendering any sort of bilateral commitment impossible. So America's secondary blockade is effectively stopping all of these other countries from actually transiting through the Strait of Hormuz by going into an Iranian port, because the American secondary blockade dictates that any ship that touches the Iranian ports, which is necessary, cannot cross through the Strait of Hormuz. That's what the secondary blockade is there to do. So South Korea can't even do any sort of bilateral commitment with Iran and go to Iran directly and be like, hey, we'll purchase your oil or whatever. No harm, no foul. You think they're going to do 9/11 2.0, the manufacturer consent for this bullshit? Look, what have I always said since day one? The only thing standing in the way of America is not like, any sort of like regional superpower, any sort of great power, any sort of international power like China. The only thing standing in the way of the United States of America is its own incompetence. I don't even know if they're capable of pulling off a sophisticated like 9/11 style false flag attack. I mean, you're asking me if that's a possibility, but I don't know. I just don't think that America has the capabilities of pulling off a world-changing false flag attack of that magnitude.